The Whole Lotta Red Effect, the one that everyone, whenever their favorite underground rapper releases an album and it doesn't get the exact praise they want it to, believes is going to happen to their albums. And every single time, it just doesn't happen. Mansion Music by Trippie Redd, Yeats Afterlife, Summers, like basically any Summers album, No Stylist, X, every single one of these albums, maybe hasn't gotten the exact reception they've wanted it to. And whenever someone even makes a hating video or a video where they say they just don't like the album, it immediately goes to this Whole Lotta Red Effect. You guys are going to be on it in a couple months. And every single time, it just doesn't happen. And I think a lot of this boils down to the reason that Carti and Whole Lotta Red were kind of the blueprint for all these other albums. These other albums aren't really going to be as popular and have that same Whole Lotta Red effect because to do that, they would have to influence a whole generation of artists. Every single one of these underground artists really got popular after Whole Lotta Red released, or at least got more onto like the past the actual underground stage and more onto the mainstream stage after Carti released Whole Lotta Red. And I think that's a big difference why people like always bring this up. It's because these guys are Carti disciples, and because they've listened to Whole Lotta Red and seen what happened with that, they're like, Whole Lotta Red effect. But that just doesn't happen because the Whole Lotta Red effect happened because people really came around to that sound as time went on. And you'd have to release something that's so revolutionary that people would have to come around to that sound as time went on with this album or with these albums. And I feel like that really hasn't happened. And I feel like the main reason this is because of this kind of TikTok effect. I mean, Carti's Whole Lotta Red is a really big album on TikTok. And I think that's kind of why, Whole Lotta Red really does get the praise it gets now because of TikTok, which is such a weird thing to say, but there's kind of a reason why a lot of these albums recently haven't been as like praised as Whole Lotta Red. It's because people don't listen to them after the first time. You just take your favorite songs, you get them, and you put them into a playlist, and then you don't listen to the rest of the other songs ever again. But TikTok kind of brought Whole Lotta Red to a bunch of people who hadn't listened to it before, and they're like, wow, this sounds really good. I'm going to go listen to this album, and I'm going to go, check it out. And I think that's why these other albums haven't really had that same effect, is because you'd have to have such a large audience keep listening to these songs through TikTok. And I think that's how people actually started liking songs like Sky, I Love You, I Hate You. It's because they listened to them so many times on TikTok that they kind of got ingrained in their heads where it's like, wow, this isn't as bad of a song as I thought it was before. And it's when you listen to these sped up versions, which I'm not going to lie, Carti sounds way better on a lot of these sped up versions than the actual songs. Because, I don't know, his voice just works perfectly for the sped up versions. But either way, the TikTok effect really does help because you have all these people coming in. They're like, wow, this is really good. They're telling their friends about it. Everything else is happening, and they're like, wow, maybe Whole Lotta Red isn't that bad. And then with these albums, like, I feel like every single one of these artists, besides, it was one song on No Stylist, No Stylist, and then there's been a bunch of Yeet songs that have gone super viral on TikTok, but I feel like Yeet hasn't had any of those songs on one album, and they really haven't had that same effect because they haven't been hated at the jump. People already knew what they're getting into when listening to Yeet, and he hasn't really changed the sound that much. I mean, I think his last album, which I wasn't the biggest fan of, there were some really good songs on there that he kind of changed the sound on. But I think overall, Yeet hasn't really changed his sound that much since, becoming a big artist. While Carti did change from Die Lit to Whole Lotta Red. I think a lot of that has to do with the producers he actually associated himself with. You see on Whole Lotta Red, there's like a lot of filthy beats. There still is some stuff with Art Dealer, but there's like Out of Town. There's all these other people, but before that, it's like a lot of Pierre beats. Like that's kind of what Carti, I guess, grew up on or like got popular off of. It was Pierre beats. But then when he went to Whole Lotta Red, he switched it up and he went with a lot of new people and new faces. Well, I think that hasn't really happened with Yeet or Destroy Lonely or even Ken Carson. These guys have been sticking to their same sound that they did before. Destroy Lonely, everyone's like, wow, this is such a chill sound on If Looks Could Kill. But it has all the same producers that he used before. It's all these underworld producers. There's Clayco, there's Carter Bryson. There's all these people that he already used before. And it's like, there's not much of a switch in sound because he's using the same producers. And when you get super like comfortable as an artist and you just want to use the same producers, it's going to hurt your evolution as a sound, and you're not going to have that same switch from like, yeah, Whole Lotta Red to Die Lit, and like I think Whole Lotta Red to the next album that Carti puts out. There's going to be a big switch because he feels like he has to do that now. I feel like there's really three main points on why these albums aren't like Whole Lotta Red. First off is just a lot of these albums are really long. Like Whole Lotta Red was also really long, but that was kind of the reason it was hated off the jump. It was really long. It was a new sound. And then it took time to kind of get into it. These albums are also really long, but they kind of, mostly have the same sound throughout, especially If Looks Could Kill, which I think that album is also another reason why. There's another reason why is the playlist albums. These albums are also super long, which makes a lot of people just take certain songs from them. And I've seen all on like Reddit. People are like, bro, these are just playlist albums. You just take your favorite songs from them. But it's like that kind of ruins the art of making the actual album. Just like throw it out like Drake and I think More Life and just say, oh, it's a playlist. It's not an album. It's a playlist. And I clearly see that Destroy Lonely wasn't looking for this when he was making If Looks Could Kill at all, because he made that short film with it. The short film was really corny, but at least it kind of built up some album hype, which I feel like no other artist, has tried to do. And I respect him for doing that, but the art that goes with it, the actual album, is not good, bro. There's 26 songs on here, and a lot of them just feel like one big song because you took like 7 guitar songs in a row and you played them back to back to back. Like you have to at least sequence your album or at least try and do stuff to see the actual, like, people a lot of times actually don't listen to the album straight through. They'll listen to them on shuffle. It's like, bro, just listen to the album straight through. There's actually an art of album sequencing. You want to put your best songs first or last. I don't know. You want to put them in the order where it sounds good listening through the whole thing. And when you have an album that's 26 songs long, the sequencing becomes even more important because you don't want the listeners to actually get bored the whole way through. I mean, you look at If Looks Could Kill and you see a clear drop in numbers throughout the entire album for the plays just because people get bored listening halfway through when there's 26 different songs and you can just listen to your favorite ones or the ones that other people think are good. And then the last thing is, of course, just switching up styles. Like I said, all these artists in the underground really haven't done that to a big level, and I feel like it's also just because they haven't gone really to that mainstream level where you can do that. They've just been trying to appease their fans, and I think they've been good at that. And if you do like these albums, go like these albums, but every album is not going to have that Whole Lotta Red effect, and this has become one of the most overused and corny things to say. Just say, oh, I like this album. Don't say, oh, it's going to have the Whole Lotta Red effect. You guys are going to be on the meat of this album in a couple months, because I feel like that just has not happened ever. And I feel like it just has happened because no album has had staying power, or at least really long staying power, maybe even since Whole Lotta Red. Like, no mainstream album has had that super long staying power. They just kind of drop, and then people talk about them for like the next month, and then they just kind of fall off. Like, I don't know if I've heard of any album that's been really talked about for more than a couple months even.